Sunday, September 27th, 2020. This is episode 6 of the Factorio podcast. My name is Blake, and this is Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Blake.
Hey. All right. Well, how's your week?
Oh, my week? It's been good. I've had some drama in another game, but recovered, and I'm back on playing some Factorio. And I gotta say, like, if I were to TLDR it, the Factorio community spoils me. They're just so good. They're so amazing.
Hands down, top tier of the pyramids of communities, man.
Top tier. That's you, viewers, listeners.
Anywhere from the modders, the bug testers, the supporters of live streams, the supporters on Reddit, even the toxicity of the rest of Reddit. It is this one little shining island of just, hey man, let's just go here and talk about a really great game. And the rest of Reddit's probably a disaster. So anyway, it is great, right? When you and here's the other thing is when you step to another game, you really quickly realize that not only has the community spoiled you, but the devs. and the polish, right? And stability and all of that, man. It's just they've thought of everything. And to that end, one of the things we'll talk about today, to that end, one of the more successful videos I've released is my top 10 things I wish I knew earlier in Factorio. And the one I get the most response on, both in live stream and in the comments and all of that sort of stuff, is the work that I do on or the hints that I put on trains. And when you have a train, okay, I'll give you an example. My parallel, we'll talk about it, is I've been playing a game off air called Forager.
Okay.
And this was a very indie game, and it's very similar. I think it's an automation game where you start out in your handcrafting stuff, and then you build machines to craft, and then you have automated things that collect for the machines. It's very similar. Here's your Forager, right? I think it's one guy who made it all, part of a humble bundle pack that I got, and Forager, it's kind of Factorio related.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's enemies in there. It does put pressure on you to go. Not as much pressure as the biters do, but there's a little bit of a dungeon crawl, a little bit of a progression. There's rewards and keys. It's very Zelda-like on some of the
looks fun
mission. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's this little indie thing, and you can farm, you can dig, you can the crux of the whole thing is more automation, and there's actually landfill. There's like terraforming, and there's nuclear fuel. And what I have not gotten into, and I was excited to see, was trains are also in this game.
They got trains too?
They have trains in this little island hopping game. I've not bought a locomotive and I've not laid any tracks, but it does say that trains are they're available for me to purchase.
Nice.
And I can go into them now. I've just unlocked them recently. There's a tech tree. All kinds of neato things. I gotta believe, and this guy's been working on it for a while. I gotta believe that some of his automation was influenced
for sure
by a little game we call Factorio. For sure.
And Factorio's been around for 6-7 years, right? It's been in development for a long time.
Six and change from when.
So
remember so I'm thinking about the 5-year party. Remember back when we could gather in large numbers? You remember that?
Pre-COVID.
In COVID, yeah. Remember the 5-year party in the Czech Republic, right? That neither you nor I got tickets to.
No, we weren't big then.
We weren't big. We're still not. By the way, we didn't get tickets to this late. All right, I mean, we get things you lost in the mail all the time. So
I hate it when that happens.
So it's been influencing this genre, and one of the highest rated games on Steam, second highest rated or something, cajillion copies sold, big 1.0 release. Like everybody who's in the dev community knows about this and has heard about it and all this other business. Like it's very prolific, and it's not Fortnite prolific, but it's prolific in that if you're if you're doing any sort of automation in a game, or a lot of times if you're a developer, you've heard of it, right?
For sure.
I would be surprised to find a developer working on a game currently, or even working on a game 3 years ago, who has not heard of this or who has not had it recommended to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I hear it a lot at work. Yeah, I hear it about, like, I'm a consultant. I hear, people, when I start a new engagement, they know about it. They talk about it. You know,
really?
It's just, some people know me. There's been people who are like, oh yeah, I think I've seen one of your videos actually. And it's like,
really?
Awkward.
Yeah. I have a story. So this is another one we have on our big list that we will do. Elon Musk tweeted about it, right?
Yeah.
We have another one on our list about how Factorio has proliferated into our lives and how it's affected our lives personally. So we'll table a lot of those. Let's table a lot of those stories for a different time. But just an hour ago, I unlocked trains in Forager, and I went, nice. I didn't even know they were there. I went into Forager completely blind. I'm not even done any YouTube or anything, but I unlocked trains today. So anyway, that's what we want to spend our time talking about today. So there's trains. There's a question in our sphere that ends up a lot on Reddit. It ends up a lot in my chat. Probably ends up a lot in your chat. Is when do I start trains?
Yep.
Because there is, so let me set the stage for this conversation, then I'll ask you the big question is, all right, there's a starting area that is biter free. There's a starting area that you can pick the resources by regenerating the map every time. You have a slider bar that shows you how big and how much, etc. And you can there's just a starting area, and once those starting resources are gone, you need to begin to develop more. You need to develop more. You need to go find some other resources, and then you start having this choice of, all right, do I drag a long belt all the way out here to this thing,
5,000 belts,
or a pipe, right? If it's oil, you got to pipe it, and then you got to have tanks and push it along the way. Otherwise, it's not going to make it. The other one is, do I drive a car and load up a bunch of resources and hand feed it for a time until I can get some more? That's an option.
Yeah, that's an option.
And then there's this other one that the devs kind of intended, and they've spent a lot of time putting into this system, and it's trains. And there's lots of little secret pieces to trains. They put lots of polish into trains, and they've developed this in a lots of different ways you can run them. Two-sided, double-sided. There's left-hand drive, right-hand drive. They've got rules. They've given you lots of tools in your hand, in your toolbox, to run these trains effectively. And so you're forced with a decision of, when do I start this process, right? So you're right now in a series called C Block.
Yeah, we're in C Block.
And I was looking at your build today. You have trains.
I do have trains
in C Block.
In C Block, yep.
So there was a time at which you said, all right, this is no longer just a belt that I can drag over here or a bot, right? You can have a huge network, right? You can have bots take everything, which you're doing Brave New World plus C Block, so you don't have a player character. It's all bot driven.
So I can't hand feed anything.
Can't hand feed anything. So you've made that decision recently, especially in something crazy like C Block. And so what was tell me about the process by which you go making that decision of when do I start trains?
Trains for me, now I've done so many mega bases and stuff to use trains. Trains for me has now evolved into, it's a system to handle balancing and logistics, really, right? It's kind of a way to have a universal balancer. So you want resources to go, from A to B, A to C, A to D, A to E, A to F. You want to distribute resources all over the place. With a belt, you need splitters, and you got to run belts everywhere. With a train, It just,
It's train.
every
Right.
intersection is a splitter in a way. So
Oh,
that
okay.
is one of the big drivers behind the decisions for me to use
Mm-hmm.
trains, right? The others, throughput wise, you can build a lot of belts and you can move a lot of material with a pretty wide,
Mm-hmm.
chunk of belt. 8 blue belts next to each other is going to
That's a
move a
lot.
lot of material.
That's a lot of material. Right.
Yeah, you'll see that in some bases.
Right.
But it's all
So
about logistics, moving material around to the right spot, and it
yeah,
helps.
so 360 items per second, right? So 45 times 9,
Mm-hmm.
right? Did I get that right? 45, 90
Uh,
times 4, 360.
415, 405,
Oh, goodness. All right, chat's going to yell at us here. What? So 45 items a second times 8.
405 times 8.
8 belts, right?
You said 9. 360.
360
360 items
per
second,
second.
21,600
Okay.
items per minute.
All right. Yeah. See, 360. I was on it.
360.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you were.
Because my process was 45 times 2 is 90. 90 times 4 is I break it up into chunks. Yeah.
Yeah, and so 21,000 per minute.
20 times 60. Yes. 21.6 per minute. Right.
Yeah.
So that's 8 belts. Belts are freaking expensive, especially when you get up those blue belts.
Yeah, the blue ones.
The number of gears that you take into a blue belt is it's insane amount, especially the undergrounds. If you have to go under a cliff or something like that, the undergrounds will chew up so much iron, so much gears. At some point, you go, all right, the same length of rail, and maybe an input and an output, a commenta and a gazinta and a kamata, right? And you say, all right, that amount of steel that I need and an iron rod, right, and some stone, that seems way easier.
Yeah, it seems easier. It seems smaller.
It seems
way simpler.
Way simpler instead of dragging this whole thing. And then I can also control the size of my train, which is there's a lot of stuff that goes into the decision on how big to make a train, which should weigh into also your decision of when to cut it over. Because if you start out and you make them too small, then all your stops are going to be too small.
Yep.
And your throughput's going to be less, right?
Yes.
There's lots of decision points of I want to do a train, but then it's not like the other things in Factorio where you can kind of build small and easily rip up and redo.
No,
right?
It's not. You gotta have a couple of decisions that you make up front. How big the train, how wide, left hand, right hand, versus just connect point to point, right? I mean, the most basic train route is you take a rail and you drag it to the patch.
A to B, right?
A to B, and you have one train on it that goes back and forth. You saw that in Biter Battles.
Yes.
Biter Battles, they took the simplest train configuration possible. Picks up from A, drops off at B. Done.
And there's only one train allowed on it at a time because that's it. It just goes back and forth because otherwise it'll have to wait or stop or wreck. All those things.
No signals, nothing.
Yeah, no signals, nothing. In the last episode, we talked about multiplayer and how a build you can allow somebody in your multiplayer to put a really small build down, and it's just to get something going. You can worry about it later. The opportunity cost of ripping it up and redoing it, not so bad. You can come along and redo it later. The opportunity cost or the setup cost of doing that in a train, and it's much bigger.
Oh yeah,
right. And because every cargo piece that you decide to put into your train, it has a cost of inserters that need to all be placed, and then belts to take those, and a chest to receive them, and then belts to take them off of those as well.
And space, lots of space.
Trains
take up a ton of space.
They do take up a lot of real estate. It's not, especially if you're going to do some of the advanced things like stackers. If you're going to have multiple trains coming in and out, you're going to need a place for those to wait their turn to go fill. Lots of videos out there on how to do stackers. Lots of videos on left-hand drivers, right-hand drive. But okay, so when you go to make a decision, tell me about how you size your trains, and like your first set when you're going from belts. and you've dragged everything on belts or bots to your main base. And how do you know how big to make your trains? And then how do you know when it is? What do you do personally? How do you know when it's time to start?
Oh, okay. So when is it time to start is always a tough one. I so for, take this from my perspective, right? I've done a lot of bases. I always like to do the trains after I launch a rocket, and the reason for that is because you get your rocket and you have your base kind of set up, right? You're a couple hours in my case, or maybe you're 10 hours or 20 hours into a normal case. And
maybe an hour and a half. I don't know.
Maybe an hour and a half.
Maybe an hour and a half, and I'm just shattering world records. You're left and right.
But after you launch that rocket, that's when your ore patches are looking pretty slim, right? So your miners are all dead, and your iron ore belts are pretty dry. So at that point, I say, okay, look, I need a supplement, and this is probably what goes through a lot of people's heads: is I need to supplement ore. So it's time to build a train station, and that could be one or two little unloaders, right? One for iron, one for copper, maybe one for stone. So you start with just one or two. You don't go too big. That's what I like to do. And you just get something in there where you can unload ore into your existing build and just get more iron, right? More copper, more iron, because every minute that goes by, ticking away at Spidertron research and atomic, bomb research, those are thousands of yellow science, right?
Yep.
So it's just gonna eat your patches alive.
Yeah.
So at that point, you say, okay, I'm gonna build a train. So what kind of train do you need? Well,
right.
It's really easy to start with something as basic as 4 wagons. 4 is like the magic number in Factorio.
It is.
You got a 4x4 balancer. The universal 4x4 balancer does everything you need to do.
Everything. Yeah.
So you have 4
simple
wagons.
Yeah.
You got a 4x4 balancer. Balances the output of the wagons. You can figure out the details of that. Outputs into 4 belts of resources, which goes into 4 smelters or whatever you have configured in your base. And then you can upgrade those from yellow to red belts, and now you have 8 belts. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have 8 belts potentially of iron. So it's a great spot.
It is.
It's a great time to really upgrade your base because you're ticking away at science. Hopefully your biters are kind of covered, and you've launched a rocket, so you've got the meat of the game. But now it's time to do a little bit more.
Expand it. Now it's time to kind of scale. I guess that's the big thing, is scaling up, right? Get to your rocket number 1, and then it is scale up time, right? Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking about my last 3 playthroughs. All of them have been multiplayer. And I was going, my counterpoint to that is, in multiplayer, it's probably different.
Yeah.
We did not launch a rocket for a while, and we scaled up a bunch, and we had trains running well before our first rocket. And I'm trying to think if it was a function of having more players in there who kind of, by virtue of having, so in something very focused like a speed run with multiplayer, everyone's inventory is a buffer. And so you need more things to be in store in each player's inventory to go off and build what they need to build and execute their task. So that takes away, that's kind of like a little buffer that takes away from that. And I'm trying to think in my multiplayer, is that we did have that. We had maybe 4 or 5 players running at the same time, and they were all executing tasks. But I don't think that's why we burned down those patches that quickly.
The starter patches?
The starter patches. Wow. I think our default is, I think I know why. Okay, I know why. What I have a tendency to do in my multiplayer, now this goes to default settings. Okay, so this is a good decision point, where if you in the drop down on your map generation menu, there's default, then you can flip it down to go marathon, death world, ribbon world, etc. Like there's a couple of presets.
Yep.
Rail world is my default.
Oh yeah, that's a big difference between default and rail.
Yes. So what Rail World does, if you're in your Factorio game while you're listening to this, go there and flip that down. What you'll see is frequency goes down, richness and size go up. That means you're gonna find fewer patches around, but when you find them, they're gonna be very sufficient. So I was just thinking about, even in the playthrough I did this time, I did. And in the Ribbon World and in the 1.0 vanilla that I launched, I cranked frequency down a bit.
Oh yeah, that's what I like to do as well.
Yeah, and then I upped size and richness so that when we found something, the patches would last a little bit longer, because in the multiplayer mechanics, you're going to have folks go out and do a thing and take care of a task and come back, and they'll go build this and take care of a task, and you'll have isolated. It's very rare that you have two people working on the same thing unless it's combat, right? Yep. Combat tactics take two people. But we ended up with, as if your Rail World settings are frequency lower, then you will probably find that that rocket patch, the decision point of when to start trains, will be much earlier, because you'll go, oh, okay, well, I might not have gotten a patch here, and holy crap, the next iron patch that we have, it's way out there.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's not feasible to run a belt that far, and so you're instantly put in a decision of you're not really in a gray area. A lot of times you're not in a gray area of I could run a belt out there. There's no question. Okay, you got to.
So I got an opinion on that decision. Okay. So what you're talking about is advanced players working together, multiplayer. So you're gonna get stuff done quicker, and so of course, compared to single player, you can get those trains in earlier because they probably know what they're building. But then that point at which they want to build the trains, I think is going to move forward a little bit. But I do think that even in Rail Worlds, where the first patch outside your starter is pretty far away, the decision to actually go out there and just go through the effort of 20 or 30 minutes of 4 lanes of yellow belts coming back is worth it. It's simple, it's effective. Your first iron patch, it's probably worth it. It's just so many resources and so easy to do. Whereas like building a train, it's a lot of steel, it's a lot of infrastructure to get started, it's a lot of placement. However, if you do want to do trains for that, and you can, I would guess, this is just a guess, but I would guess in your multiplayer game, that starts when the first player equips Power Armor Mark 1.
Yes.
And the personal Roboport, and they get their robots. Yes. That's the big one. Yes. If you're going to do trains and you don't have construction robots, which right now is the way the tech tree is laid out, trains, green science.
Yes. Yeah.
Construction bots, blue science. If you do that trains beforehand and you say, you know what, I need a little bit more space, this whole thing, it's off by 1. That's hell. That's just ripping it up one tile at a time. But if you have those construction bots, that's when you can build something, can get it how you like it, move it around a little bit, and maybe make some blueprints, right? So train blueprints, you're gonna do your own set of train blueprints the first time you play. Right. You're gonna get something going. Maybe you'll do the tiled ones, but probably not. You're just gonna want to have something to help you place things maybe a little bit more quicker. Maybe you want like a standard loader, right? Yep. Maybe you're using the Madzuri loader, but all those things, it's like you really want to have bots do that for you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And to that end, I'm thinking about the last 3 playthroughs. We only made a point-to-point before bots. We did end up doing it before bots. It was or right as we got bots, right? But when it was point-to-point, it was just, I'm just going to run with rails all the way out here, set up, and it was oil. I think it was oil the last couple of times. All I'm really doing is a fluid wagon, a locomotive on each end, and I'm just loading it, and I'm just sending it back and forth, point to point. That's it.
Yep, that's pretty common. Yeah,
that's common.
To do to oil, and then you bring the oil back. It's just so much easier than trying to deal with pipes, especially through the forest. But there's a second thing that those point-to-point rails got you, which I guarantee I guarantee that your friends were thinking about travel time.
Yes.
Walking.
Yes. Yes.
If you're going to walk
100%.
out there once and get to the edge of the biters, if you drag, a rail the whole way, you can fly right back.
You go right back.
It just gets you right back.
Yes.
And then you can go out there again.
That is why biter battle. That is why they did that in biter battles. It was travel time. It was so important. Travel time. I would say they benefited way more on travel time than they did on any material they would have gathered through those trains.
Of course.
Right. Of course. Yeah. So yeah, the travel time is big, and that's one of the. So there is a point at which you will drag your first train out there. What is your first train that you make?
Oh, it's always iron ore.
Iron? Okay.
Iron ore, yep.
Last three have all been oil for us. and it's all been a point to point. It's just and it's green science. It's probably because we only got one square, one pink dot of oil on the map, right? And we're like, okay, that's not enough. We gotta go find oil. And so we have
beacons all around it.
Yeah, and we have one poor bastard that has to run out there with a track and go out there and drag a train and go fill up the oil. And it's two wagons. It's two wagons or two locos and a wagon, and it's just that's all it does the whole time is back and forth.
I've seen that a bunch. I want to talk about that. I want to explore it a little bit because we're gonna have a lot of people who think, oh, okay, well, oil, it's over there. I'm just gonna go build a train to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, typical playthrough, your first playthrough, you don't have to do it. When I first played the game, I still remember the first map that me, my brother, and his friend Jeremy played.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy said, "I need oil." Shout out to Jeremy.
Shout out to Jeremy.
He might be listening. I don't know. I'll never forget this because it's the first, your first map. You remember? Yeah. I don't have the map. It was multiplayer. My brother was hosting it, but he needed oil. This is the first time playing. It was. I'm not even kidding you. Not the next screen over, but the screen over from that.
Okay.
So you could walk there in 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, 30-second walk to get there.
Right.
And he built a train because it just felt like the right thing to do. He didn't know about pipe. He didn't know if a pipe would work. So he thought, well, I have trains, and the next step after trains is oil.
Green.
Clearly, I'm supposed to use the trains to get oil.
But you don't need to. Right. The tech tree told him to.
The tech tree told you.
Right.
But in that case, a lot of times in your default settings map, there's a pretty good oil patch in the vicinity. Don't be afraid to just say, I am not going to do trains yet because you don't have construction bots. And just go ahead and drag a long pipe out to the oil and just put it there because that's going to be sufficient. The biters don't actually kill pipes. It's very rare that they kill pipes.
Right.
They often kill poles, but not pipes.
The pipes and poles, they have to be blocking. It's not a military target. They have to be blocking their path, right? And there's no other way around it. They can't path around it, right? It's not a polluting object, right? Just a normal pipe sitting there, whether it has fluid in it or not, is not a polluting object, right? So there's fine. They don't care about it.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, they're just going to go for the oil field anyway, right? So the pipe, if the pipe is between your base, they go for the polluting object. It's going to be the oil field. If they wreck the oil field, okay, your pipes are destroyed, but who cares? Your oil field's destroyed.
Your oil field's a bigger deal, right? Right. Okay. Yeah, on all 3 of our last playthroughs, our first one, so the evolution goes, the first poor sap to do it has to drag the train out there, but then once that's done, now it's quick. And then it is also, there's a point at which we go, okay, well, it's now time to put the system in. And there's usually a train system. You evolve from just point to point. You might have 1 or 2 of those. What I typically see, I don't see a lot of point to point in very mature bases because they go, okay, well, I'm going to have a track with some intersections, and it's kind of going to be the main track,
main line,
and I'm going to have main line, and I'm going to declare this section of nothing but just the main lines. We're gonna send most of the trains out that way. And then when I want to go get something, I'll turn off. I'll make an intersection and turn off as at a stop, go fill up and come back. Right. And then the oil that we put down in the first that may have probably been, it's usually pre-rocket. is now going to have to get ripped up and adhere to the new system.
Yep.
Because now I need to make this oil, I need to get off of point to point, and I'm just going to make it part of the overall system so that the old point to point oil is now going to take the main line, and oil is now going to be a stop on the main drag, right?
Or you could do the standard, just kind of like let it go all the way to the lowest percent and just demolish it, set up another oil. Similar to your patches, right? Your first,
yes.
If you do a point to point to your first iron ore patch, you just let it go all the way. You don't need to upgrade it. Eventually, you're going to have to get rid of it anyway.
Right. Well, so a new player may not build as aggressively on the first oil patch, so it may take a long time, right? They may not set up a 16 refinery with 24 plastic makers and 4 sulfur makers, right? They may not go ham the way a veteran player might with I'm gonna have mega basing in mind right now before I do that. So that patch that you've first trained out to may last you a long time if you didn't scale up early, right?
Yep.
Because you and I, even in the speed run, it's not a small oil build. Like maybe the first one to get it going, but it very quickly goes up, and that first to be fair, also that oil placement scales up power, because there's a big step change when you turn on oil. It's a big power drain as well, right? That's your first major kick up,
and it's also a power supply.
It's also a power supply, right? Because it'll give you solid fuel and all that business. So usually, your first one, I'm thinking about the last few that we've done. My first train is almost always oil. Your first train is almost always iron ore.
Iron ore.
Yeah. So now, when you do that, your first train, do you also, for your first train, set up smelting at the patch, or do you bring in ore and smelt it in your existing smelters?
Oh, I do. I bring the ore in.
So
I don't have the resources to go ahead and do on-site smelting at that point, right? It requires tons of electric furnaces, maybe beacons if you want. It's complicated. You have to drag all the material out there. Lots of space. You're likely not doing logistics spot-based anything, right?
Right.
So it's going to be belt-based. Which takes a while to do and set up, and eventually you just want to like focus on one increment of productivity at a time. So it's easier to just bring in the ore and have it feed your existing infrastructure.
It is. So also there is one of the interesting things that we are always faced with when we start up our train systems is that same thing, is do we bring in iron plate or do we bring in iron ore, right? Because, copper is very different. Copper ore has no other recipes other than copper plate. So that one is very easy, and a very easy decision.
I see where you're going. Very easy decision.
It's an easy decision. I may as well just, if I've got the resources, to your point, if I've got the resources, I've got plenty of electric furnaces, because I'm already starting my purple build, and I've got a box of electric furnaces that I've just researched. So let's go ahead and grab those, run out there and start smelting copper. And I'm just gonna bring in copper ore in here, or a copper plate all the way to the base. I'm gonna rip up the smelting, because my main base, crowded. It's freaking crowded in here. And by the way, I'm probably running out of coal to feed all these steel furnaces. I don't know how I'm gonna fuel all this. So let's rip up this copper, and we'll put in electric all the way out there. Well, then there's a decision of, the reason why I asked Rain about how do I pull in ore or plate is there is a decision point, because there is one other resource that is super important, one other recipe that is critical to your success for the rest of the game that needs iron ore, and that is concrete.
Yep.
Critical. Like concrete. It is critical. You're not going to build another silo. You're going to need concrete for nuclear. You're going to need concrete for several other resources.
I forgot about nuclear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So You're also going to need concrete so that you can be gangster and run at 130, 140, 150% running speed in your main base. And so when you the reason I asked him that is, do you pull in the ore, or do you automatically pull in plate? Is that there's a trade-off. And what we have done in that case is that we make a train for both. Is our choice every time. So we also, not only do we pull in plate in, we rip up our existing iron plate and we pull in plate. We also pull in one train. That train may run 3 times in its entire history.
Yep.
But that's it. But you do need iron ore on your main base for a long time, because that's probably where you're going to make concrete. Now, in our ribbon world, we did something different. We pulled in stone to the iron base and pulled in steel to the iron base, and then we had a concrete train.
There you go.
Yeah.
You just build it right on the patch.
We just built it right on the patch. So this one iron patch had 4 inputs where we were dragging in. So we were dragging in stone, we were dragging in steel, and then it output. And then we had iron ore was at the patch, and then we made everything there. And so we had a refined concrete train, a concrete train, a iron plate supply train, and just in case we needed it elsewhere, we set up one iron ore train, and it sat there for the whole game. It was just in case we needed to move iron ore somewhere else.
Yep.
And that was it. It
just
was great.
Case. And it had
just
a PAX.
Yes. And a PAX. Okay.
Yes.
Do you use tell us, what is a PAX and do you use it?
PAX is a term I hear on your stream a lot. It's a personal access
player
points.
Access.
Player access station. So it allows you to go to remote outpost just by saying, I'm going to go to PAX number 5, PAX Iron 3, whatever. It's right at the top. You click it. I don't. Do I use them? No, I don't anymore.
What do you do?
I
run
on PAX. I run.
You run?
I walk. Run? No, I use Spidertron. Joke's on you. I still haven't built Spidertron.
You have what? That was your homework assignment. That was 2 streams ago. You have a homework assignment.
Yeah, I know. No, what I do is I do the control click on the map now. So now that they added control click with your trains.
Oh, your temporary station.
Yes. Temporary station, you can just say go to some spot. I no longer do any sort of manual driving either. No manual driving. It's something in the past. All I do is control click. But before that, I did have PAX set up. It's always like, hey, this is where you can drop off your personal train. You always keep a stack of 5 trains on you so you can plant one down, throw in your nuclear fuel or rocket fuel. A lot of times it's rocket fuel because nuclear fuel doesn't stack well. And you zoom to the next one and you go make your coffee while your train is on its way.
Okay.
Right?
Here's your counterpoint. Okay. So a player access, here's what we do is you put in your stations, you name your stations something. You name your station something cool like Iron 1 plate output, Iron 1 ore output. Like you have to name them smartly so that your material trains will go in, collect, and come back out, and they'll do the system. And the counterpoint to the reason why you do want to use PAXs is twofold. One, when you name it a PAX, you don't start with the letter P, AX. You put a hashtag in front of it.
Yeah. So
that the hashtag puts it to the top of the list. You can find it out all the time. And when you're clicking through the train schedule. 2 is that I agree. The temp stations are awesome. You can open it. You can fire up the map and say, I want to go there. 2 things that I don't like about the temp station. 1, the default of 5 seconds before it moves on to the next stop.
Oh, I hate that.
See?
Oh, I hate that. I always have to change it to be like.
Here's my scenario. Paul goes in and says, all right, I'm going to go out to Iron 3. I'm going to click on the map and I'm going to say go, and I'm going to leave and go get my coffee. I'll see you guys later. And then you go, and then suddenly it goes there. It makes it. You're still making your coffee. It waits 5 seconds and then zips right back to the main base.
Yep, back to pick up the resources.
Right,
because 9 times out of 10, your PAX train is your build train. Right.
Yes. So So it goes back, and then you sit back down with your knife. Okay, let's go fix it. Oh, I'm not even at the outpost now, right? Number two issue is at a mega base where you transition into a gigabase.
Mm-hmm.
You may not remember where your nuclear setup is on the map. Is it? Did we set up north? We set up south?
Especially in multiplayer.
I don't need to remember. I've got a station named nuclear, and all I have to do is open up my train that never gets picked up. It's always got fuel. It's always got my supplies in it. And then I can just go click, click, and nuclear. Then I can rest assured I never had to find it on the map, and I'm going to go get coffee, and when I come back, it's going to be safely at the stop, no temp, no nothing, doesn't move on. You set some sort of impossible circuit condition where it can't, it'll just go, right?
Or
and that's it. So I do like the temp stations for certain conditions. I do not like the temp stations for transporting a player out there, unless it's something like there's a biter attack up there and I don't have a PAX near it. Mm-hmm. Now it's time for a temp station. I've got the siren going off. I click the button and I see where the attack is. There's nothing around it, but except for a wall. There's no PAX station there yet. We haven't built it out there. My outpost is getting attacked. I'm going to fire it by map. I'm going to click that and off we go. But I'm not going to get coffee after that. I'm going there and I'm going to stop my train and then I'm going to go fight biters and get it on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what ends up happening, I'll give you the detractor for the PAX. One, there's extra maintenance in setting it up.
Yeah.
It's a one-time setup for every outpost, and you set up like two or three of them in your multiplayer base.
Yeah, and if it's part of your blueprints, it's no big deal.
It is. Yeah, you put it in your blueprint. So I have many blueprints that have the PAX leads into the stacker, which leads into the drop with the stacker inserters and all that good stuff. And then I can paste that in. Number two, the downside to the PAX is on we'll call it a gigabase. This is beyond megabase. This is gigabase.
This is like 10,000 times per minute or something.
Yeah, the train list that is stored in your train of the PAXs you've been to, it's huge, and you got to scroll through and figure out where you're gonna go. That is a little, unruly to get to.
Yeah.
In my mind, when I outweigh those two, I put the PAX still up there that I can save them, and I'll just order them. Like maybe I have all my irons first, iron outpost 1, 2, 3, copper outpost 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you have them
grouped it below, but you don't need to see those very often.
Right. I put in the
you just need the PAX. You have PAX.
Correct. I set up the common ones up front, and then the ones I never do, I'll sit those at the bottom.
Yep. So you got your main base up top. You got two hashtag symbols in front of it. Right. Main base, build train, whatever.
Sure.
Your spawn point, some anchored position. Then you have your PAXs, and then you have your pickups and drop-offs. Or maybe your outposts or your nuclears. It doesn't matter. I thought of one more thing I want to add on to your list of reasons why you could build a PAX that could be beneficial. Now, I'm just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so validate my guess. Your PAX has its own spot, right? It's not in front of another station. It's not in the middle of the iron pickup.
Correct.
It's got a reserved piece of rail for that PAX train to sit when it's not in use. Yes. When I control click, okay, I just click wherever I want. Okay,
and you may
be multiplayer game.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave my train there because I'm lazy. I'm playing a lazy bastard mode. Plus, I'm a lazy bastard. I'm an engineer. So I'm going to leave my train there.
Right.
And how many times, Chad, has this happened to you? Oh, man. Nothing's moving. We got a deadlock. What's going on? Oh,
what's going on?
Somebody left their train on the track. It's just sitting there. There's 14 trains waiting behind it.
Yep.
All backed up. Biters came through, started wrecking one of the trains. You get a big problem, and it's all because somebody in your multiplayer game left a train.
On a temporary spot.
I'm telling you, it's West Dude.
It's always
every
West
time.
Dude.
It's always West Dude.
It's West Dude. Yeah. So yes, the PAX is a lot like a stop. It is pulled off of the main line, so you can go there. Your train is parked so that other trains can get by the stop. That's that is a super common one. So that has actually happened to us when I went out there to fight biters, and there was no time. No, there was literally no time to put the train away properly. It was, let's get out there and let's deal with the threat. And I left my train on the line. I put in some sort of temporary stop. It was not 5 seconds. I amended it, and I just left it on manual. And then I ran out there and hit the biters, and then that was on the main line.
Yep.
And it ended up backing everything up. Yep. And so everybody starts hollering, like, hang on. Okay, hang on. I'll send it back around. Right. The other one is pretty funny where you use a temp stop and you go way out to the edge, and then you get out and start fighting the biters, and then 5 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 3, 2, 1 Mississippi, and your train takes off. You go, no!
It's gone. And you have nothing in your inventory.
And that's it, yeah. And then your train's gone.
And you go to map view and you're trying to, like, click on it, put it in the manual, put it in the manual, and it goes out of radar range, and it's like, oh, God. I think you can still click when it's out of radar range, though.
Well, it goes all the way back to main base, and you got to wait for it, and and you go, oh no, it's gone, right?
And then you tell it again. You say, all right, come to this point to pick me up, and you control click, and then you go kill some more biters, and you look, like, where is this train? Oh, it came, it stopped, it waited, and then it left again.
And it left.
I really do. I think you're on point. I think they should definitely remove that 5-second order by default. Just put an order.
Give us an option. Give us an option.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Some sort of drop down for in your settings. Make it in the others section of either a slider bar that's like a value that says default time for temp stations. Set it to 400, right, or something like a number of seconds, right? That would be an easy setting.
That would be nice.
It's one more variable, or maybe a toggle button to say pause indefinitely, something like that.
But what is the use case of a 5-second wait? Like what like who's going to go somewhere for 5 seconds? I understand that they have to have an order. They don't have an order, it just flies right by.
Well, they need a condition. You need a condition.
You need a condition.
You need a wait until condition. Yes. Right. I get that too. I don't know.
I guess why not do time, but instead of 5 seconds, do like 10,000 seconds by default,
or a slider bar. Just give us in others a default slider bar. That's it.
Yeah, default. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
How do you feel to bring this back to other to introduce changes? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So on the same thing, on the same line as PAX's, last night we started setting up the train system. Our first train was one stream ago, and it was oil point to point. It was just crude because we needed some extra, and we were bringing crude into the base. One train, one wagon, back and forth. Mm-hmm. We started last night. We launched. So to your point, credit, we launched a rocket, and then we started setting up the system. Now, the first stop I put in the system was a PAX.
Of course.
So that when we want to go back and forth and get out there, so that we can go to and fro and start setting up the thing. And here's the interesting thing: the first outpost we did, there was one copper outpost and one iron outpost. Iron was first, but we belted. We just said, all right, screw it. We're just going all yellow belts. We're just going to drag a bunch of yellow belts in. It was a pain to walk out there. We didn't do the point to point. The first one I did on the system, because we had done the iron, because we had done the copper, and we were doing okay, stone. So I put a district out there. PAX, and my first PAX was stone 01.
Yep.
And I was preparing to move some more stone in, because in space exploration, iron, copper, like stone is right here in your list of demands that you need.
You're making me want to play SpaceX now with trains.
It's funny. It's good.
Even outside of SpaceX, you do have a huge need for stone with purple science now.
Yes, you do.
It does churn through a lot of stone, and military too, if you're doing military. And the patch that you get for stone in the starting area is always it's like the smallest one, right?
It's usually
smaller than coal, right? Usually it's smaller than coal.
Well, the thought process when you're generating, so the two things are related. your map generation decisions affect your first train decision. They really do, right? Of when do I fire it up? So these two are related. Is when do I start trains? You're really deciding a lot of times when I start trains based on my map generation rules, right?
Yep. If you're playing like an any % speed run, there's no trains.
There's no trains.
Right?
Yeah.
If the floor is ore, as Colonel Will says, and you crank up the settings and you have patches everywhere, you don't need trains. Like there's just no purpose to it.
Right. There's no purpose to it. So, but if your map generations will affect that first train decision. So, and a lot of times when you go into your map generation, you're refreshing and you're thinking, okay, how do I get a good start here? Or what's a good map, et cetera, or what's my goal, or what's my flavor of that I'm playing? A lot of times you'll hit your first few things are iron, copper, coal, oil. How do I get those four? And then stone is usually this little fifth decision, way down. I want some. Okay, that's enough. Let's go. And then we go. Right.
Start a patch. Good.
Start a patch. Let's go. Let's go.
I want a big iron patch nearby, and I want oil on the screen. I got that. Nobody cares about stone, but it's a great, it's a great reason to get the train set up. And not only that, if you're playing like a water map, right? Landfill is super stone heavy.
Holy crap! The amount of stone you will use on landfill, the amount of stone you'll use in purple science. It's insane the amount of stone you'll use on landfill, right?
So I want to ask you a question.
Okay,
I want to loop back a little bit before to what we just said. Changes in the game. You would recommend a little bit of tweaking to that 5-second rule.
Yep.
How would you feel? And let's just throw this out there. How would you feel if the devs decided they wanted to move maybe not all of the rail research, but maybe some research for rails down into the tech tree further?
I think it's at the right point. I've been thinking about this since we spoke about it, and still my number one use case of when I start a train is usually to go get oil. And because of the problems with long distance piping. So on a belt, you don't lose throughput based on your distance.
No, you don't.
On a pipe, you lose throughput based on your distance because of the pipe friction, right?
Yeah, but are you using 1,200 oil per second?
No, but you need to fill the dang refinery. Like you need to at least fill the refinery. You need to get the oil there.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is if we move it any farther in the tech tree, we need oil for it. Any of the pieces of train.
You would need oil for it. Yes.
You would need oil for it. And I'm saying no. I'm saying it's in the right spot because I think your use case is iron. In my 4-ish years, across all the mega bases we've done, across all the sciences, pre-1760, pre-1759, right, post and pre, the number one use case I've seen is 2 locos, 1 wagon, 1 track, backwards and forwards, oil.
Yep.
So if you remove that condition, if you remove my ability to do that by putting trains ahead of oil, crap, now my decisions at MapGen may be very different.
Yeah.
I may give up a lot of maps that are pretty great because they have no oil very close.
So let's just examine that. If the map gen is so important that oil will be nearby and it's so critical to the gameplay, then is it a bad idea to just incorporate oil into the starting area?
Oh, like every time
every time? Well, because how many times have you gone to Reddit and seen a post like can't find oil, and they're just going like all over the map and they haven't found oil yet? It's just random bad luck. Yeah. Or it's so far away that it's like really hard to defend. And I get that, you do want to have people venture out, but like 1, 2, maybe 3 tiny little spots of oil nearby, or just have it be like, here's the starting area with your iron and copper, and then there's like a secondary starting area where there's going to be, it's like a bigger radius, but there's going to be oil there.
To Level just, 1, right.
Yeah,
essential ores, elective ores, something like that, right? Or essential resources, elective resources. Something
I'm not going to push this. I just wanted to get your 2 cents on it. I've always thought that trains were a red herring that players thought they were supposed to go down, but they didn't really need to. Nobody needs trains to finish the game. It is an optional tech. Well, you need rails for purple science.
You need it now, yeah.
Okay. Which you get rails in green science, but you use it for purple science. If they put just a small little requirement on locomotives to require oil, that would say, don't do this until you maybe have construction rods. And maybe a perfect, simple, and easy way to do that, all right, is what type of locomotive or train system runs without a shred of lubricant?
Yeah, that's a good argument. I mean, yeah, that's a good argument.
Right.
But I agree. Yeah. At the same time, or just all you got to do is require an electric engine instead of to build a locomotive.
Yeah, but then they're not electric powered though, so it doesn't make any sense.
But yes, okay, yes, but that would put in the lubricant requirement for a train.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're locking trains behind oil, and I don't know. I still think it's not a bad thing to unlock that thing early. I've seen a lot of creative to that end. I've seen a lot of creative early base things that would get you out there. The number one thing to get out there is to make your first outpost and get to it in travel time.
Yep,
is a really big use case.
Yeah, but you got a car at that point, so it's not so bad.
Yeah, cars are, but it's not okay. Car, you're a car fan. You're a fanboy of cars.
Okay, I haven't used a car in 2 years, man. I haven't had a body in any of my playthroughs. Remember?
That's right.
I don't even know how to drive anymore. I lost my license.
I'll tell you what. Once you slide into that seat, that comfy leather seat, that body hugging, hip hugging seat of that Spidertron, you are gonna be through with cars forever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell everybody what you got going on this week. You streaming? You still doing your C block? You just wrapped one up?
Yeah, I just wrapped up a C block stream. I'll be doing some more. We are mid game, a little bit more than halfway through. We're researching the rocket silo now. Okay. And then C block, the rocket silo has its SpaceX, right? Not space exploration, but SpaceX. The what's that guy's name? Lord Couture's mod.
Yes.
So it adds tons of length to the game. So we're just on the cusp of SpaceX. We have our black circuits on. So we'll be doing more of that this week, probably on Wednesday, and then next weekend on Saturday, probably something similar. Cool. Just staying focused with this Braver New C block, getting that complete. But I'm really excited. Like every time I hear you talk about space exploration, every time I hear anyone talk about it, I've just wanted to play it so bad for so long.
Yeah, it's neato. It's cool. Neato so far. It's very different. The level of stone is really shocking. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing right now. Me and my multiplayers, the subs are in. We have in my playthroughs, which by the way, I'm doing 5 days this week. Trauma Tuesday, where Twitch interaction happens. Your support in Twitch drops bombs on my base. I can get out of it. We're actually doing some different thoughts on how to spin that. There may be a wheel of torture as well, where you spin a wheel and and it's full of mods that I could add. Like every 500 rockets that I launch, I get to spin the wheel.
Ooh.
Some of the mods are horrible and they will make things more complex. Some of the mods on the wheel give me an advantage. So
movement speed bonus.
Something like that, right? Yeah, exactly. Or I get to add one of the extended, a Factorio extended dimension. Right? I get upgraded assemblers. Okay, that'll make it faster, something like that. Or I get upgraded miners or something like that, right? Something like that. The rest of the time we're doing our space exploration, and where we are in that, we have launched a rocket. We've launched about 10 satellites, and every satellite explores a new world that you can go to and land on. And then you can go extract. And I think we've explored 9 other planets, and only 2 of them have biters. So it looks like we're gonna go mine up some materials, and then it's gonna be some sort of planetary invasion where we're gonna get to go invade and clear us a spot, and then go fight out there, right? So that is what we're looking forward to. But none of us have been to space yet. All we've done is be able to look up and see what's out there. But we're trying to get ourselves up off the planet, because you can't do rocket research without getting off the planet first.
And
we're locked, so
isn't it the case that you have to, like, if you want to go there, you have to, like, ride a rocket?
Yes.
You want to deliver resources there, you have to, like, ship them via a rocket. So your launching rockets is like part of just moving around. Is like, oh man, I forgot something at the other base. I'm gonna have to go launch a rocket to get back, and then launch a rocket to get there.
Yes, you have to launch not only supplies, but launch yourself. And then once you're in space, then you can start doing the space science. Send that back to your labs, I think, and then you can get the cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like so much fun, man.
Right. And
what am I doing here on C Block?
And I'm freaking lost. I'm lost. So I'm hoping the subs are going to help me out. So that's what I got going on.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Any parting thoughts?
No, it's just, train on, man. I hope everyone has a wonderful experience with the trains. I hope it helped kind of define a little bit about what you want to do with your next train playthrough, your rail world, or just your next playthrough overall.
Yep, and what sets Factorio apart from all the other games that have trains, all of the other train functionality, there's this one little piece, and it is called the chain signal.
Oh yeah,
and that one object having a chain signal versus a normal signal, and the behavior of that chain signal just cracks open Factorio to a whole nother mini game. Inside of trains. So making that first train is one thing, point to point. You can kind of figure that out. That's the tutorial up in the upper right. Advanced tutorials, you'll probably want to go watch some videos on, because that chain signal, learning how to use that chain signal is so key. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have a comment, leave it in the comment section below. All the descriptions for Rain's channel, my channel, are in the description below. So if you like this sort of thing, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, go hit up Rain, throw him a sub, hit him with a follow on that Twitch channel. Tell him you like what he's doing. So with that, thank you very much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.
Adios.